we saw Jokic play basketball, right? Serbia versus Greece in the friendlies. Serbia won 76-66. Giannis didn't play in this game, and Greece is kind of like very, very shorthanded without him. They're probably not one of the stronger teams in the Eurobasket tournament as a whole, or that will be participating in Eurobasket. So that Serbia won was not a surprise. Will, what was your general impression of Team Serbia in this game? And did anything surprise you about how Jokic looked or how he played in this game?
No, nothing surprised me too much about Jokic. He looked like he was trying on defense more than maybe I would think,
true.
But he always,
especially for like this was like his second friendly, and otherwise, to our knowledge, he hasn't touched a basketball in months.
Yeah. I mean, he was up on the level like he always is, but he was working pretty hard to recover off motions, and he was moving his feet really quickly, and like he does the best that he can.
Got a couple kicked balls.
Yeah, the Jokic special. Yeah, I thought he did good. Like, he always puts effort in when he plays for Serbia, even in these types of games. And offensively, like, he's always going to do what he does. I like the fact that he hit the soundboard shuffle, just so that he still got that elite skill and the touch. And like, yeah, he missed a couple little layups and like had to do the rebound put back tip shots, but that's not a big deal. But yeah, I was more just kind of surprised, not necessarily surprised, but just interested in seeing how it worked as a whole with Team Serbia. And like, Jokic just is Jokic, but I was interested to see how that affected Serbia specifically, like versus the Nuggets, and how it can look different or similar at times.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how Serbia used him. It felt, compared to the Olympics, like they were spamming the post a lot more at least in this game, right? And I've been told by our Serbian friends, such as Miroslav, who had me on Serbian Corner last weekend right after this game. So check that out to hear more analysis about this over on the DNVR YouTube channel. That they're gonna the Pesic will try out different things throughout these warm-up games and just kind of throw stuff out there. We saw in the Olympics, like Team Serbia played very differently when they played Team USA, for example, in the group stage versus in the knockout rounds. Just in terms of their approach to the game, for like the main thing that stood out to me in those two games that they played against Team USA was there was a much greener light for shooters in that second game, which is how Serbia built up that initial lead in the first place. That guys were making their shots, but they were taking a lot of them like they were ready to fire in a way that was not necessarily their approach in that first game. And so I wouldn't take too much away from that approach in this game, but it was just interesting to see because that was not something that I'd seen Serbia do in terms of spamming the post with Jokic to that degree. Poppin doesn't feel like Serbia wants to. I mean, probably not. They need somebody. The thing with Team Serbia is like, I'm totally fine with them not using Jokic as a spacer because they don't have any other good interior finishers on that team. So they need somebody to be on the inside. An NBA team would perhaps be less dependent on that because there are other players that can kind of not just get into the paint, but also finish there. But actually, to that note, Alexa Avramovic, my favorite little pesky, Serbian defender. He actually had a good finishing game at the rim in addition to his defense in this one. Mm-hmm. So that was really fun to see the defense. I agree with you. They were the Jokic was a lot more engaged defensively than I expected him to be in this warm-up game. And I thought the whole team was, at least for long stretches of this game. You saw in like their most dominant stretches against Greece, where it's like, yeah, this team's not in our weight class. It was really easy for them to put the clamps on. And they kind of defended, honestly, a lot like OKC in terms of how aggressive they were on the perimeter and just playing every passing line, and they were willing to give up open corner threes. The problem was when they got to those stretches where they weren't necessarily as like engaged and focused as a group, and then Greece was getting like corner three after open corner three after open corner three. which is a thing I've kind of wondered about when it comes to these pressure defenses and the level of like focus and engagement, like consistent focus and engagement it takes to keep that up without giving up like a lot of good stuff. But anyway, that was a warm-up game. But we are so starved for basketball that it was that was a big one to get to see.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like them playing through the post, I don't know if it's just because you're going to trust Jokic to do that, and he was just felt so much bigger than Greece, and so did all of Team Serbia. To me, at least, like I felt like Jokic could kind of get whatever he wanted and like toss Greece players around. They were funding him aggressively at times, which
there was
will require...
nobody on Greece with the size to deal with him. They tried being aggressive with him inside. They forced some turnovers. You could tell the scouting report and like the instruction to the Greek bigs was like, just beat him up. And it like, it didn't, the best thing that they could do was force turnovers because they weren't going to stop him once he like caught the ball inside and then like went to score.
Yeah.
It was more, he actually missed
difficult.
some bunnies. So it was more like him beating himself. But other than that, they were like, there's nothing else we can do with this guy.
Yeah. But I thought like, Jokic had good screens on the perimeter too that caused some back cuts and interesting plays, or like that allowed an open corner three that if Serbia looked for it, they got. There were times where that was open and they still tried to force the pass to Jokic inside, which then did sometimes cause a turnover. But I'm always interested to see how they handle those entry passes, just because like we saw that with OKC in that series, how, Alex Caruso is obviously much different defender, and OKC has so many different defenders than, a Greece team would have, of course. But sometimes it's frustrating to see how difficult it can be to get the ball to Jokic at the post. Sometimes Serbia had amazing passes to him in the post, and I was like, wow, that was great. I love that. And then there'd be, one that wasn't as great and would be a turnover. But for the most part, I thought they did pretty good. And I liked Jokic's screening and back cuts the back cuts that allowed other players on the team. So I thought like overall they were pretty impressive. Like I like their ball movement and I like the defense. So, if you're a Team Serbia fan, I love watching them. They're a good, fun watch.
To your point about the entry passes and how difficult it was to get the ball to Jokic inside, and like despite that, they were still like pretty dominant, like kind of when they wanted to be at points in this game. They still got like a ton of points in the paint, despite the entire strategy by Greece being like, let's take away the paint as much as possible, which is like, it very much felt like watching last year's Nuggets in that sense. And to your point about the coverages too, and this isn't really an OKC thing so much as we saw like the Lakers do this at points last season. Who were some of the other teams that were employing this like really aggressive, like denial, fronting, and bracket coverage on Jokic down the stretch of last season? Because I know there were a few that copied LA after that. What was it, like a March game after the All-Star break? That was something that Greece was doing. It was like, this is all we like can hope to be able to, slow him down, is like try to make it really difficult to get the ball to him in the first place. And I do have a new agenda when it comes to entry passes, because I do think it's important to have a good entry passer or like a good entry pass, but it doesn't really mean anything if the big isn't sealing properly, or if the post defender is just good enough to make that seal not as good. If they're kind of pushing Jokic further out, making the passing angle more difficult, or like making Jokic's sort of catch angle weird so that the pass is weird and then like things aren't synced up. And I think that there's an interesting dynamic going on with that more that I saw in this game than necessarily bad entry passes. Like, okay, the interior defense was, and that's something that I've been thinking with the Nuggets too, is like, yeah, there are definitely better entry passers than others, but it's not like any of the entry passes when people are complaining about them were like easy. And part of the way it's like part of the dynamic there with, is an entry pass easy or not, is like, how is the defense defending the big? and how well is the big sort of countering that to create like a good seal of that defender to keep them away from the ball so that they can catch it cleanly.
Yeah, and that's what I mean too, is just like watching that. If someone's bodying Jokic, whether it's a really good front defender or it's just a smaller guy who's just trying to make life difficult for him, even though Jokic is so much taller than him and he can put his hands up and he can catch a ball with one hand, you know, because his hands are so great, you still have to make that pass and put it in the right spot. And I think, you know, players on the perimeter can see that, you know, Jokic is, you know, being bodied, so they got to put it in a good spot. And I'm just like interested to see when people can do that and when they can't. Like, it's not like it's necessarily so easy. Sure. It's easier than other times, but
and often like the reason it's hard is that it's not necessarily the right play, but it's the play that the players on the court can make. And what I mean by that is, you remember when we were talking about the Thunder Pacers series, and there was that play, I don't remember which game it was, where I think Case and Wallace is on Pascal, and someone comes over to like front Pascal and off of Benedict Mathurin, and Mathurin is able to like, oh, he's getting fronted and they're denying me the post entry. I'm going to drive. And he had the opportunity for a layup, doesn't go for it, but kicks out to Obi Toppin for a 3. There aren't a lot of guys on Team Serbia that I necessarily want to put the ball on the floor and make that kind of play. So I think they're just like, shoot. And that's like shoot or figure out a way to get that entry pass in. Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Pop. And someone else just rotates and picks it off, because the entry passer isn't just worried about the player that's on the big, but like whoever's helping as well. Stefan Jovic was good, perhaps in that aspect. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with the final national team roster for Eurobasket, because there are a few cuts that they have to make to fit the roster requirements. But anyway, it's a very interesting game. There will be more. Team Serbia plays Czechia next. I think that is that next week? Hang on, I'm just going to pull up the schedule again real quick. So they have, I think, one more game before their Slovenia game. Oh, they have 2. So they play Czechia in another friendly tomorrow. And then they have another one listed for Saturday. I don't know which, or whether Jokic will play in both or neither. In addition to the final warm-up game that they have against Team Slovenia on the 21st. So, you know, look out for those. Those will be interesting to see, especially because most of these teams are not in Serbia's group. So they may never play them again in the tournament, depending on what happens next.
Before we go to the Nuggets schedule, we didn't talk about Kessler Edwards, but a lot of the chat is bringing him up.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the Denver Nuggets signed Kessler Edwards to an Exhibit 10 deal, which is a training camp deal. I agree, 140 acres, but they're still probably not going to sign him. For reference, an Exhibit 10 deal is a training camp deal that allows a player to participate in training camp, and it gives the team that signs the deal with that player the right to basically sign them to a 2-way contract if they want to. That's not going to happen in Denver's case because they already have filled their 3 2-way roster spots. But the other thing that it does is sort of establish that relationship between the two, and then potentially, I don't know that they're going to do this, but maybe if training camp goes well, they want to sign him to the Grand Rapids Gold. Kessler Edwards, really good defender, kind of an end of bench guy for a couple different teams. I've seen him on the Mavs and the Kings the last couple of seasons for sure. Mostly plays in garbage time, or if there's like a bunch of injuries on the wing. He's just kind of like, he kind of reminds me of Spencer Jones, and it's not just because they're both have the same body type and curly hair. Like, they just kind of both do the same thing. They're just like defensive wings that shoot sometimes. Kessler probably has a little bit more to his like off the dribble game. But the point is that these guys are not going to play, and I don't think that Kessler is going to get that 15th roster spot either. That was definitely a question that a lot of people had when the news first came out, because it was first announced as Denver Nuggets are signing Kessler Edwards to 1-year deal instead of it's a training camp. Like, my thing when I saw that was that I knew it was a training camp deal, because if it wasn't, they would have said so, because they're getting this information from agents that want to make it sound as good as possible. But no, the Denver Nuggets have not filled their 15th roster spot with this signing. I don't think they're going to before the season starts, because they want to stay as close to the luxury tax as possible so that they have the opportunity to duck it at the deadline. That's just what they're probably going to do. But yeah, they signed this guy. So what do you think of him?
I don't know much about him. I saw the news. I saw stats about his 3-point shooting. People were kind of selling him as a shooter.
On like 40 attempts for the season.
Yeah, I didn't expect to sign anyone in the 15th roster spot. So not knowing that it was an Exhibit 10 right away, I was like pretty like confused and shocked. And I was like, what? But I'm so brainwashed by Ben Wallace at this point. I'm like, all faith to them. Whatever they decide to do, if there's a reason that they're signing this guy to the 15th spot, I'll just go with it. But I don't know much about him, but I think it's good to bring in a guy who can compete in training camp. And there's some comments that reflect that, and I wanted to bring some of them up because we have I assume a Mavs fan here, Dirk Mania, who says that he helped the Mavs a ton, and the Mavs fans were mad that they chose Prosper over him. We also
another
have a comment.
Team that is the victim of we got to develop the young guys. They brought Edwards in to threaten P-Watt and Tyson's spot. This is according to Soro Alpha. They brought Edwards in to threaten P-Watt and Tyson's spot and give them competition, but he's probably going to take Tyson's spot. He's underrated, in my opinion. Soro, I think they probably brought him in to have competition at training camp. That has been a running theme between John Wallace in particular and David Adelman throughout the summer, that they are really looking forward to having a competitive training camp. But Hunter Tyson's spot is probably not under threat, because if they haven't filled their 15th roster slot yet, they're probably not going to waive a guy to pay another guy. And I don't think either thing is going to happen. I think they're just going to go into the season with the 14 guys that they have. I don't like it because it's clearly purely financially motivated, but that is what they're going to do. Like, I would be surprised at this point if they did something else.
Yeah, Dirk Mania brings up a good point.
Dudley will make them sign Edward over Hunter. I do not think that Jared Dudley has the power to make them not want to duck the luxury tax.
But I do like the Dudley connection with him. This deal may be short-lived. Right, we'll see how it works out. But yes, so he knows him.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he gave them some info for sure.
Probably. We know that coaches are a factor in the player recruitment process for sure. 140 acres, I wouldn't say perfect, but we could always use more defenders, and if he knows where to be, knows where to cut, all that kind of stuff, that could be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, hear what quotes come out of training camp, even though sometimes they're total bullshit. Like when Aaron Gordon told us that Dario Saric was going to be competing for rotation time. But there were other years where Michael Malone told us that Justin Holiday looked great, and he didn't play for the beginning of the season, but then he looked great when he did play in the latter half of the season, and especially the playoffs.
And didn't they say, well, I can't remember, it was either Justin or P-Watt was like the new Jeff Green, but better or something. Anyway, the quotes can be crazy.
They said that, they said both were, and I think Justin probably did fill that role. Peyton did not. That was that.
And if we sign Kessler Edwards, he's certainly not backup point guard. It's still a question. That would show that it's Pickett time and Bruce Brown time.
Yes, I think that's what it's going to be. I think they've just been lying to us all summer, and all the
nothing is indicated that they're hunting
statements about. Yeah, for sure. Then again, nothing was indicated about anything else that they did besides signing Bruce, which Bruce had been indicating.
That we were going to only improve through free agency and not trade. So
and rely heavily on internal development. All right. Well, for everybody that's made it this far in the stream, you guys are real ones. We appreciate the hell out of you guys. If you like our content, please remember to click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. Follow us on social media. All our social links are in the description: Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc. And always remember that winning is fun and losing absolutely sucks.